6.6 notes. Essential question. How do you solve a radical equation? This will be the last section we do on chapter 6. Just give you a heads up, I'll tell you in class, but your chapter 6 test will be on Thursday. Um, so this will be the last section. We'll be reviewing and working on stuff till then. But how do you solve a radical equation? We already kind of talked about this, how to solve this, so this section should go pretty quickly. Steps to solve a radical equation. First step is isolate the radical, get it by itself. Okay. That means you usually have to add or subtract the number away from the radical to get it by itself. The second step is to raise both sides of the equation to the power that will cancel out the radical. So if it's a square root, you're going to square it. If it's a cube root, you're going to cube it, and so on. And the last step is solve for a variable. Okay, so we got two problems here. We got the, let's solve A first. The cube root of 2x plus 7 to the third power. So first thing we're going to do to get rid of the cube root is we're going to cube it. And if we cube one side, we have to cube the other. So the cube root and the cube cancel out, leaving us with 2x plus 7 equals 3 cubed, which 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Okay, so then we solve that, get x by itself. We subtract 7 from both sides. Then we get 2x equals 20. And the last step is divide by 2, and x equals 10. Okay, if you want to check that, you plug 10 back in. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 plus 7 is 27. The cube root of 27 is 3. So it works, checks out. If you want to do that handwritten, or you can just do that mentally in your head and check that. Okay, the next one, we have the square root of x plus 5 equals 4. Well, how do we get rid of the square root? We square it. So we're going to square both sides. So we have x plus 25 equals 4 squared, which is 16. And then we're going to solve for x by subtracting 25 from both sides. So then we have 16 minus 25, which x equals negative 9. If you want to plug that back in, negative 9 plus 25 is 16. Square root of 16 equals 4. It checks out. It works. Okay, you can do that mentally, or you can write it all out. Okay, but it will be important that you check, because sometimes you'll get answers that won't work, so it's important that you check it. But the ones that are pretty straightforward like this usually will check out and they will work. Let's go to the next example. Okay, so this one, we have to do something on C that we have to do on the other ones. We have to isolate the radical, or in this case, the exponent, the parentheses with the exponent, that's a root. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is add 1 to both sides. Okay, we get x plus 2 to the 3/4 power equals 8. Okay, the next step is, when we talked about this in 6.4 a little bit, is when you have something to the 3/4 power, how do you get rid of it? Well, you raise it to the power of the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 3/4? It is 4/3. So we're going to raise to the power of 4/3 on both sides. Wow, that is bad. Still working on getting better at this. Okay, so we're going to raise to the power of 4/3. Okay, if you raise to the power of 4/3, 3/4 and 4/3 will cancel out, leaving us with x plus 2. Okay, because 3/4 times 4/3 is 1. X plus 2 to the first power is just x plus 2. Now, 8 to the 4/3, what I like to do is take the root. The root is the bottom number, so what's the cube root of 8? It's 2. So it'll end up being 2 to the 4th power, which is 16. So 8 to the 4/3 is 16. You can also just put that in your calculator and solve that. Last step is subtract 2 from both sides, and we get x equals 14. Okay, if you plug that back in, 14 plus 2 is 16. If you take 16 to 3/4, okay, the 4 through to 16 is 2, but 2 cubed is 8. So you end up 16 and 3/4 is equal to 8. And then you subtract 1, you get 7. So it does check out. Okay. Let's do the next one. Got to isolate the exponent. So we subtract 3 from both sides. And we get x plus 2 to the 2/3. equals 4. Okay, and we have to get rid of that exponent. Okay, so we have to raise to the power of the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 2/3? It's 3/2. So we're going to raise to 3/2. Okay, because 2/3 and 3/2 will cancel out, leaving us with just x plus 2 equals, now 4 to the 3/2. Remember, 2 means the square root. So the square root of 4 is 2, but 2 cubed is 8. And you can put that in your calculator. 4 to the 3/2 is going to equal 8. Okay, and then you just subtract 2, and you get x equals 6. You can plug that back in and check it. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 to the 2/3. The cube root of 8 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So you get 4 plus 3, which equals 7. So we know it checks out. Okay, so I do encourage you to check out. You don't have to write it out, but I want to encourage you to check each of your answers. Let's go to the next one. Okay, notice how this one looks a little bit different. Okay, be on the lookout when you have more than one variable on each side and you have one radical. Okay, same rules apply here. To get rid of the square root, we have to square it. Okay, so we're going to do x plus 1 squared. And we're going to square this, okay? Now, something that has been a problem in class lately is people will just put this 2 with the x and make it x squared, and then they'll square the 1 and make that 1, and they'll call it good. You cannot do that. When there's a plus in the middle, when you square a binomial, you have to write it as x plus 1 times x plus 1, okay? You have to write it twice, okay? You can't just put an x squared plus 1 and call it good, okay? So I see a lot of people doing that in quizzes. Make sure we don't do that. So you square the square root and you end up with just 7x plus 15 because they cancel each other out. Okay. Now we got to FOIL this side. So x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. 1 times x is 1x. And 1 times 1 is 1 equals 7x plus 15. Okay. And then x plus x is 2x. So we end up with x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 7x plus 15. Well, now we have a quadratic. Okay, we all know the ones we just had linear answers. We could just solve for x. Now we have a quadratic. So what we need to do is set it equal to 0 and solve either by factoring or quadratic formula. So let's set it equal to 0 by subtracting 7x from both sides and subtracting 15. That's bad. Let's just start over. Subtracting 7x. I'm just going to make it work. And subtracting 15. Okay. So when we subtract 7x and 15, we end up with x squared. 2x minus 7x is negative 5x. 1 minus 15 is negative 14 equals 0. Okay, hopefully you can see that. I know I'm getting worse at drawing here. It's not easy drawing this Moby. It's not easy. Okay, so now we got to factor. Okay, the easiest way that I can tell this is factorable, so that's the way I would solve it. You can use quadratic formula. It's going to take a lot longer. Look for factors of negative 14 to add up to negative 5. If you want to make your box over here, you can. Okay. But the factors of negative 14 add up to negative 5 would be negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. Negative 7 plus 2 equals negative 5. So I can rewrite it as x minus 7 and x plus 2 equals 0. Okay. So I factored that, and you can factor, or you can FOIL that and check and make sure it's the same thing. But the last step is to find out what makes those go to 0. What makes x minus 7 go to 0? You can set it equal to 0 and solve it. You should get x equals 7 and x equals negative 2. Okay, now it's really important now. The other ones you probably could have got away with not checking your work. I'm going to erase that. But now it's really important that you check your work, especially when you get 2 answers. Now both of them may work, but a lot of times you get 2 answers, one of them won't. So let's check 7 first. We got 7 plus 1 is 8 equals, you plug in 7 there. 7 times 7 is 49. 49 plus 15 is 64, so we got the square root of 64. And we get 8 equals 8, so that checks out. So we can circle this one. We know that's the answer. Let's try negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1, we plug it in the original, and hopefully these don't confuse you. Okay, so we got negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. Okay, and then we'd have negative 2 times 7, which is negative 14. Negative 14 plus 15 is 1. So we'd have the square root of 1. So we have negative 1 equals square root of 1, which is 1. Does negative 1 equal 1? No, it does not. Okay, so you have to cross out that answer, and the only answer you'd write is x equals 7. Okay, so this is one of those where you put this on a test or you get a multiple choice answer, I guarantee 7, negative 2 will be one of the choices you can pick. You got to make sure you check both work and just pick 7. Okay. Also, you should just know that if you take the square root of a number, you shouldn't ever end up with a negative, because otherwise you have an imaginary number. Okay. So those are things to think about on that. Very important that you check both answers. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it. Solve this one on your own and check it and see if you get the right answer. Email me if you have any questions. And you are done with chapter 6 as soon as you finish this. Good job, and I'll see you in class.